At Protective Asset Protection, we'll provide tools to make added protection more attractive and empower your business. Together, we'll help more people gain the sense of security they deserve, because we're all protectors.
Hey, it's Jamie here in Detroit. On this week's bonus episode of Daily Drive, we'll hear about the important role that captive finance companies have played in the industry for 100 years as part of our centennial anniversary here at Automotive News. But first, we brought you a piece of this week's Automotive News Congress Conversations live stream on Thursday's show, which digs into the details of President Trump's auto parts tariffs and what they mean for automakers and suppliers. Our own Hannah Lutz and John Irwin spoke with Whipfleet partner Lori Harbour, McClarty Associates Senior Managing Director Kate Kolutkowicz, and Sam Fiorani, Vice President of Global Vehicle Forecasting with Auto Forecast Solutions. Here's more from that conversation.
We have a question from one of our viewers on LinkedIn. They're asking, how do you respond to supplier price or cost breakdown requests if you've been getting those? So that would include separate raw material costs, labor, SG&A, profit. Have you gotten those requests? Anybody on the call?
We're doing a lot of that for our customers, people who are, first of all, mapping our supply chain, understanding where things are located, understanding what the tariff is by country at the 10% level today and what it was originally announced to that's been put on pause, right? And then doing the financial modeling of, and that's where the quote activity is coming from. So if I have a part in India, let's quote that part here in the US. Let's see how much that's going to cost us to move it. Do I have to create new tooling to move that part, or can I move the tools? So it's a real full financial cost model to evaluate it country by country and helping people make a make-buy decision based on other countries and other suppliers that they could move it to, right? We make the tariff high enough in China, we just move the cheese, right? I mean, does that mean it moves to the US or does it move to India or Vietnam? You just have to model every aspect, and the labor piece will be the most important.
Sam, as in the long run, as companies maybe look at, how to resource into the US, you think they're looking more at building from scratch or maybe more brownfield development, or are we looking at, signs of, collaboration or maybe shared capacity with other companies? I guess what sort of developments might companies be looking at? What's realistic when they look at resourcing?
From the OEM side, as Laurie pointed out, these plants, while they may be underutilized today, have product planned for them. They're ramping up electric vehicles. They're moving into something else, and there aren't a lot of plants that don't have something earmarked for them in the next year, 2 or 3. So saying that it's simply that they're underutilized just doesn't look at the long term, that it takes a while to put in the tooling and everything to build up these plants. We are seeing some shuffling of product around right now. We're likely to see more in the near future, as the transition to EVs has been a lot slower than the manufacturers thought, and they don't need these extra plants. So some of these plants are being recast as hybrid or internal combustion engine vehicles. We're seeing that already, and more are absolutely going to come along. We're expecting to see a couple announcements very shortly of retooling of plants, but because they've already invested the money to move towards whatever product they planned previously, that now there's going to have to be a bigger investment to move that to something else. So we're going to see hundreds of millions, and in some cases billions of dollars of reinvestment in these plants to retool them for what is desired by the public going forward. And some of that product will be resourced from Canada or Mexico or somewhere else.
Sam, a follow-up to that. Are automakers thinking of that as a long-term strategy or something to get through the next however long, 3 to 5 years or just 3 years?
Well, they're obviously not going to say that it was a short-term plan. The idea that the Trump administration is only going to last another 3 and just under 4 years means that somebody else will be in power in 4 years, and we may get a revised USMCA plan, something else that would reinvigorate the automotive industry that requires all 3 of these countries to be globally competitive. This is a region of the world that the U.S. cannot properly compete with the EU and then with China. So if they can utilize the assets of all three countries, suddenly we're on the same footing with a combined EU and making globally competitive products. A lot of these manufacturers have to make that $100 million, $500 million investment in a plant for a longer term. You can't just say, this is the move we're going to make for the next 4 years, because it won't pay itself off. But they may be one generation of vehicle or 2 generations of vehicle before they move to something else longer term.
Sam Fiorani is Vice President of Global Vehicle Forecasting with Auto Forecast Solutions. Lori Harbour is partner with Wipfli, and Kate Kolutkowicz is McClarty Associates Senior Managing Director. When we come back, as part of our 100-year anniversary of automotive news, our own Rudy Shork talks with retail reporter Paige Hodder about how captive finance companies have served dealerships and customers for more than a century. That's next on this bonus episode of Daily Drive.
Yeah, my name's Jeremy Beaver. I'm at the Del Grand Dealer Group CEO. We have 17 brands in the heart of Silicon Valley, San Francisco, 1,100 team members selling over 28,000 cars a year. Protective has been a partner of DGDG for a long time, and we are just so thankful for everything they do to help us every day. I've been at DGDG for over 15 years, and we've grown as an organization from 3 stores to the 17 we have today, and Protective has been critical in that growth. Not only in the products we sell, but long-term growth strategy through data, through insights, making sure that we are performing at the absolute best every step of the way. I think when dealers are searching for insurance companies or reinsurance companies, there's obviously plenty of choices in the industry. For us, the most important piece when we chose our partner to go with Protective and have a long-term relationship was exactly that, because of the relationship they provide. A very hands-on approach to helping us grow and drive our business every single day is critical, especially in the automotive industry where it's headed, not only with our guests, but with our team, to make sure that every single day we are at level 10. We continue to lean on our partners at Protective to make sure that we are going in the right direction and that we're gonna be absolutely at our best for years to come.
Captive finance companies have quietly powered the auto industry for over a century, shaping how we buy, lease, and finance vehicles. Today I'm talking with reporter Paige Hodder, who explored the evolution of these companies and why they remain so crucial in moments of crisis and transformation. Paige, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
For those who may not be familiar, what exactly is a captive finance company, and how does it differ from a regular bank or lender?
So a captive finance company is typically a financial company owned by a parent company that specifically finances the purchases of that parent company's products. So in the case of the auto industry, although they do exist outside the auto industry, a captive is a lender that helps you buy a car from a specific automaker. For example, Ford Motor Credit. Ford owns that company, and they only offer loans and leases for Ford and Ford vehicles. In some cases, automakers might have a partnership with an outside lender that will offer captive financing for their products, but in most cases at the major automakers and brands, it's a subsidiary company owned by the automaker.
You wrote that these companies have been around for over 100 years. What were they originally created to do, and how has their role evolved over time?
Yeah, so GM had the first captive founded in 1919, so it's over 100 years ago. And the idea is to help their dealers sell cars, help people get financing for cars. And that's what they still do as their major role, but they have changed a lot over time. Another big role of captives today is offering commercial financing to dealerships. So not only do they finance cars, people buying Ford or GM vehicles or whatever, they might also finance floor plan or real estate loans for Ford or GM or Toyota dealers. They've also grown a lot. They used to be far more local operations before technology allowed lenders to really have a much more national scope, but obviously that's changed over time. And the types of products they offer has changed, insurance products, big leasing, projects and that kind of stuff. Not a part of the original offerings, but definitely a core part of how captives work in the market now.
You also highlighted how captives played a big role during moments like the Great Recession and the pandemic. How do they support automakers and consumers during those disruptions?
So I highlighted those moments in my story. They're fresh in recent memory for, I'm sure, many people working in the auto industry. And there are times where it's hard to buy a car. And that might be because of the recession, the economy, or that might be because, the world has gone into lockdown and you're a little bit afraid of going into a dealership. And so those moments, captives can step in. They have a bit more flexibility, a bit more resilience. They're backed by a larger company, and they can offer incentives that might be, a nice leasing rate, that might be a lower interest rate, that might be cash down, and they can incentivize people to come into the dealership in a time when they might be a little bit wary or might not have been able to otherwise.
Today, with the high interest rates and tighter inventory, how are captives helping automakers stay competitive?
Yeah, so cars are expensive today and interest rates aren't helping. The Fed, in its most recent meeting, decided to keep the benchmark rate, which means average interest rates probably aren't going down anytime soon. And, monthly payments are high, sticker prices are high, and it's hard to buy a new car. And, with all the tariffs news happening, it's probably going to become even more expensive to buy a new car and, maybe a used car. And in light of that, captives can step in and offer incentives. And in this case, like a particularly enticing incentive might be a very competitive interest rate. If interest rates are high at banks, captives can step in and say, hey, that rate looks really nasty and that monthly payment is not pretty. But if you finance with us, we can make that a bit more manageable.
Ford Credit and Toyota Financial came up a lot in your reporting. What are they doing that really illustrates how modern captives work?
So one thing that really became clear to me in reporting this story was how much captives have evolved over time and how evolution is at the core of how they work in the market. Captives are meant to be flexible. They're meant to adapt and react to the situations and the conditions of the market. Toyota Financial is one of, if not the largest captive in our market today. And, I had a chance to sit down with the executive vice president of transformation at Ford Motor Credit. And one thing he really emphasized for me looking ahead is a focus on technology. Captives, they're backed by these strong, long-lasting automakers. And so they can be a place where, automakers and as a lender, they can experiment a little bit with, maybe a subscription model, maybe digital initiatives, and they can really try and keep up with, what does financing look like in 2025? What does financing look like in 2030? How do people want to get a loan? How do people want to get a quote? How long do people want to lease a car? So speaking with these companies, it became clear to me that in the modern era, captives are really focused on maintaining that legacy of evolution, on investing in new technology, on learning about what the modern car buyer wants when they come into the dealership and how they want to finance their car. And to me, that really spoke to that legacy of, like I said, evolution, flexibility, and really being a balancing force in the market that bolsters the stability of automakers, bolsters the stability of dealership, and really reacts to consumers' needs.
Thanks again, Paige.
Thanks for having me.
You can read her full article, How Auto Finance Captives Have Worked Over the Past 106 Years, right now at autonews.com.
Thanks for listening to this week's bonus episode of Daily Drive. Come back on Monday for a brand new full episode of the show.